Well, howdy there, everyone. But before we get started, Fred, I've got to know what was going on behind you. It looked like you had, like, what was the background you have there?
Well, I had my wife's former acupuncture robes. Like
Oh,
she had this
okay.
whole like doctor Oriental medicine thing going on. This is her office, so I was looking at it. I was like, "What? This is distracting. I don't like this." So
That
I
I
was
really want. I kind
distracting.
of want people to see it because it was in this little tiny box that we saw over here. I thought
yeah.
you were in like a room that had like sausages hanging on the wall. like you go like through a butcher shop, they just got like sausage hanging out. I thought that's what you want. I thought just like a big
That
thing
is
of
where you would go,
sausages.
Kenny. That is where you would go. Of course.
He's thinking ahead on our themes to the meat finished bourbon.
Oh yeah.
It's probably happening one day.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I mean, I can show it to you.
If Slim Jim hasn't jumped into this yet, they need to.
Hey,
Arby's
we got
has,
an
remember
Arby's.
that.
That's what I was gonna say. We got an
Yeah.
Arby's finish.
Complete with meat and cheese.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's got to taste better than Amburana. So
You don't really know.
There,
Ooh,
30 seconds
throwing
in.
down now.
Who had the under on a minute?
By the way, I was kind of surprised by the topics because I was like, didn't we talk about this recently?
I think we
And-
talked about it, but it's not being released for a little bit. But this is also something that I was looking at, just what's been in the news recently, and kind of figure out because we had talked about like, oh, should we talk about this as a full episode? And you're like, I don't think I could talk about it for a full episode. So I said, well, let's take it just for a little bit of a BCR,
Yeah.
I guess, adventure.
PCR take.
The
Yeah.
softer look.
And if anybody hasn't noticed, there's somebody missing, and how weird. Blake didn't make it.
Yeah, he'll show up from like a Wendy's phone booth, or
I
something.
have a feeling he's not going to let the streak die. He's going to pop his head in here and ruin everything. But that's what he does.
With crappy audio. Actually, he's got it fixed. Supposedly.
Well, full warning, I'm by myself with the kids, and they are rabid tonight, and the dog is going nuts as well. Jacqueline's in DC, so I'm and we just got back from football practice, and it's like they're just gearing up, ready to destroy whatever I'm doing. So be
Let's get to
prepared.
it. Let's
The
get to
headphones
it. then.
is almost an invitation, Fred. Just put those on, and they know, they sense it from
That
the
you're
other
trying to
room.
do something important.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah,
Nick,
told
I
him
didn't get to say, but good to see you. It's been a while. And Brian, good to
Yeah.
see
Yeah,
you. And
you
Fred,
too.
I guess.
Y'all
And
too.
Kenny, whatever. We
Fuck you.
we hate each other.
Oh, hold on. We'll throw down in a minute.
Yeah. All right, y'all ready to get going here?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Hey, everybody, welcome to another fantastic episode of Bourbon Pursuit, but also the 83rd edition of the Bourbon Community Roundtable. And this is a really good one because, of course, I was born in 1983, and so that's why I figured this has got to be the perfect number. This is going to be an amazing episode that we dive into. And maybe this is something that I looked at when I was trying to think of some topics, and I said, well, here I go again with talking about everything I hate. So let's go ahead and kind
He
of
just wants everything to be focused about himself. His birth year, and no, I'm kidding. His topics he wants to talk.
I like to make sure I'm the center of attention every once in a while. Just get my little words of saying like, Kenny, you're doing okay. But
Love it. It's the best, our most favorite show of the month. I love the roundtable, getting to see our buddies, hang out with them in the chat, talk up some great topics tonight.
Yeah, for sure. And as we get through here, definitely if you have if you have a hot take, make sure you put it in the chat as well. We'll either throw it up on the screen or we'll put it into the podcast because I'd always love to be able to get your thoughts and ideas and everything that's happening inside the world of whiskey. And I know that we'll dive into it. But before we do it, we'll get a little bit around the horn because we got Fred here tonight as well. So Fred, how you doing, buddy?
What is going on? Look, I'm just over here so proud of you two getting up in the Business Journal here locally and getting all that press. And
yeah,
so
we
now
paid
everybody's
for that. No, I'm kidding. We did not pay for it. I'm just kidding.
You gotta allow yourself to get a compliment every now and then, Ryan.
I know.
It's okay. It's okay to say, yeah, we're here.
Yeah.
We're going to do it. It's all right.
Well, I
Thank you,
appreciate
Fred.
it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. For anybody that did miss it, we finally, I guess you could say, announced it. So we are going to be opening up our own visitor experience on Whiskey Row in downtown Louisville coming at some point in the fall of 2024. So if you're looking for a reason to come to Louisville and visit, see everything whiskey, and want to see exactly like what are these Pursuit Spirits boys up to, well, we're going to have some cool new, I guess you'd say, experiences going on, and then there'll probably be a small section where you can buy like an ascot or two in there as well.
Yeah, you'll be sitting on that stock for a while. And nobody wears them.
They're always on sale.
Yeah,
The going out of business section.
yeah. Actually, more like the estate sales. So it's a different kind of going out of business.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll have commercial dishwashers on auction here in like 3 years if everything goes south.
So there you go again.
Yeah, it's okay. I have a feeling that we've got a lot of cool things up our sleeves, be able to show you all, a lot of cool bourbon releases to have there as well, and of course, you get to have a tasting session with none other than Ryan Cecil himself. So that's immediately going to be a big draw.
Oh yeah, that's a deterrent.
Well, we'll get into it another day, but let's go
That's
ahead
right.
and let's jump in with this. But let's go ahead and introduce the other two guys that are here tonight, and we'll start with Nick.
Hey, everybody. Good to be on again. It's been a little while for me, but Nick with Breaking Bourbon. Some say the best looking guy of the bunch, but that's me and maybe a few other people. But anyways, no, glad to see everybody. Looking forward to tonight's topics. I sense a little bit of disagreement, which I feel like is not typically what we have going on here. So I think that might be kind of fun.
It's all about bringing the heat. Who's got the hot takes and who can convince me that I'm wrong? Which, if you're talking to my wife, it's 99.9% of the time. And Brian, go ahead.
Hey, thanks, guys. Happy to be on number 83. Good topics here, too. Brian with Sipping Corn, Bourbon Justice, all that jazz. Y'all know it.
You all know it.
Y'all know it.
Well, let's go ahead and let's get into it a little bit. So one of the things that I kind of thought about this, and really it's something that we've seen in a trend that's been happening recently, is a lot of just talking about finishes. And that's really kind of what the topic of all today's show are, and all the individual subtopics are all just about finishes. And if you hadn't had a chance yet, there was a really good article that came out last week on Vine Pair by Aaron Goldfarb that kind of talk about how bourbon is becoming what beer and craft craze was, where they were chasing like this pastry style where everything was infused or done something differently because nobody just wants a regular lager anymore. People just wanted crazy things. Now that phase is kind of turning around a little bit. You see a lot more people coming out with different types of, what should I say, just lagers and kolsches, and as they would say in that industry, is called beer flavored beer. But one of the things that I've always found interesting and is the idea of a cigar batch or a cigar blend. We've talked about it before on the show, where we kind of give, and should I say, we probably with all due credit, was giving Nancy Fraley really the pioneering effort behind this, of coming out with the Joseph Magnus cigar blend. And this was back in the days when this is before Facebook, y'all, where she would talk about everything that went into the blend all on, I think it was straightbourbon.com. And you could go there and you could read about everything that she was doing. And really that was kind of like the forum of where people congregated. But now things have kind of taken a turn where anybody is coming out with a lot of different things and they're calling it a cigar blend. It could be finished in toasted barrels. It could be finished on Amburana casks. It could be finished in rum and baijiu or whatever it's going to be. And they're just going to call it cigar blend. So I kind of want to open up to the group and start talking about really, like, should this term start seeing a slow death, or do you think people are going to really latch onto it and people can just call whatever they want to call a cigar blend? Or does there need to be some guardrails that needs to be put up to, I don't want to say save the name, but at least kind of create some sort of consistency between different producers?
Okay. I think there needs to be oversight on all the finishing. I think
there we go.
This is where I'm going to go. Is like, I think I'm okay with finishing. I've come in terms with it. Not all the finishes are particularly my favorite, Amburana, but there are some good finished products, some good producers doing great things. Now, I do taste things, and I get suspicious that as a someone in the industry, that they tend to start tasting artificial or added flavors. And there's this whole, when you're in the finished whiskey special category, there's this whole gray area of like things that can happen that a consumer doesn't necessarily know. And I'm not saying brands are doing that. I just wish there was some more oversight or I guess stringent laws on this, because it just feels like it's pushing the boundaries of like adding artificial flavors and different color, different things to make. Yeah, I get it. People don't nowadays. They don't want their whiskey to taste like whiskey. They want it to taste like a Cinnabon, or they want it to taste like a honey bun, or they want it to taste like something. But it's like, okay, if we want that, if you want, then that needs to be a flavored whiskey category. And with the wood finishing, there's a lot of shenanigans that can go on. And anyways, that's where I kind of am leaning towards, like, a lot of these different finishes have just gone. They've gone too far, and they've kind of pushed the rim of almost artificial. That's where I'm at.
I like it. Brian, you unmuted first, so why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, and I think it goes similar to what Ryan's saying, but I'm going to veer off a little bit, Ryan, too. So cigar finish really is, or blend, whatever one you want to call it, batch, is something that's supposed to go well, the creator says, with a cigar, right? I mean, that's their goal. Some of them try to kind of overdo it and make it have cigar flavors in it, but I think the goal is to pair well with a cigar. So if I think Amburana goes well with a cigar, someone else, does Nancy's technique of the 3 barrels and heavy in the yak, or however she does it, and she thinks that goes better with the cigar, I don't know if it is definable, because you can find whatever wood, or whatever kind of toasted barrel, or whatever, third use after it's had sherry and then whatever else in it. So I don't know if it is definable. And I liked Matt Cusick's comment, because that's where I was going to go first off, is you can't even define small batch. No one's going to get around to defining cigar blend.
So here's in Brian, this is a perfect bounce back to you, but the reason why we're even having this conversation is because the creator of it, in Magnus, Joseph Magnus, did not trademark it. They could have trademarked cigar blend, and that could have been special and unique to them. That could have been the exact same thing that High West did with Boo Rye, and I know I don't believe that High West trademarked that, but nobody touched Boo Rye after High West. I mean, it's out there right now, but High West owns that nomenclature. I can't even talk. They own that name.
Yeah.
Nomenclature. So they own that. Like, people think of High West when they think of Boo Rye. So to me, Joseph Magnus created this. Nancy Fraley is one of the greatest blenders, not just of the current generation, but of all time. She is an amazing blender, and anyone who disputes that, well, then they just don't know whiskey. And what she did with cigar blend was special. It was great. And what happens when you do something great in whiskey? Everyone copies it. Everyone copies it. And if it's not copied by a brand, it's copied by a cigar club or a whiskey club that's out there saying, well, we got the finest cigar blend going over here. And then they're over there, pairing it with Rocky Patel or whatever. But I think this has a deeper meaning than small batch, because small batch is not about the palate. It's not about like a flavor profile. If anything, the cigar blend category has potential to be one of the greater signifiers of whiskey, in American whiskey, because if you're a cigar smoker, what pairs well with cigars, and like, what you like. And so I think what's missing in this whole thing is that they're not really defining what style of cigar it goes with, or what brand it would go with. I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity here, but there's a lot missing. But it all goes back to me with Joseph Magnus not trademarking it. I just wish they would have had Brian as their lawyer to help them.
But couldn't any bourbon or whiskey be defined as a pairing well with cigars, and you don't have to have crazy finishes to signify that? I don't know.
You know what? I will tell you that there are some whiskeys that just do not pair with cigar. Jack Daniels, as much as I have tried, as much as I love their barrel proof, I love Coy Hill, I love the 10-year-old, 12-year-old. Man, that stuff does not go well with but maybe one or two cigars. That banana note in there is just too overpowering. The majority of Barton I find hideous with cigars. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's with everything, like to each his own. But for the most part, people like that big kind of rounded, spicy, forward flavor profile with a big old wave of sweetness coming in to pair with a cigar. That's why I prefer rum with my cigars anyway when it comes to smoking with them.
Interesting.
Yeah, I tend to go higher proof as a general rule when I drink whiskey with cigars. I can't say I smoke cigars that often. It's probably only 2 or 3 times a year at most. The range of those cigars varies. I think the whiskey that goes with it is going to vary too. I think you had a kind of novel thing, kind of reaching off a cognac with Magnus and Nancy Fraley. I think you're seeing now that, like anything, it's a marketing play as much as it is a flavor profile kind of definition or goal or anything like that. So it makes perfect sense that if the market is asking for it, and of course Amburana finish right now is a very hot finish because it's still fairly limited. You're not seeing it everywhere. It's got typically a pretty unique taste to it. I would say pretty polarizing, depending too on how strong that finish is. I get the sense that there's different opinions on it among just this group right here. I've had some that I've been pretty turned off from. I've had others that I like quite a bit. So that range is definitely there. And I don't know that we'll really see that on a really like mass production type of level, or that's going to, continue to be a fairly one-off type of release coming through there. So even among those releases, you're going to get variation. Even among a single brand is going to vary from release to release. I think that's what makes whiskey fun. That's why people like finishes is, if you've kind of explored a lot of the traditional stuff, and limited releases can be very difficult to get the traditional ones included. Finishes expand that, open that door a little bit more for somebody that's kind of tried just about everything, or even somebody that's kind of newer and isn't ready for that just straight up bourbon, but wants something with a little sweeter profile. Maybe a wine finish draws them in because they like and appreciate wine, and that draws them over to whiskey. So I guess I would disagree to some extent with you, Ryan, on that I like the idea of finishing in the sense that I like the range that it provides. At the same time, you do have this distilled spirit specialty, kind of definition that, it does matter what's happening to get to what that product is in the bottle. And not everybody kind of follows that super closely. So it leaves a lot of room for producers to do different things that are going to vary quite a bit from one to the next.
I guess I have a question for just like you all or the audience here. It's like, okay, you see Magnus come out with Cigar, and then you have, whoever, Starlight or Buzzards, then you have like all these other brands. Is that like something that makes you like, oh, I love Cigar from this, so I'm going to try that? Or I love Amburana from that one. Like, to me, I'm like, okay, they're just copying someone else. That's not exciting to me, but I guess other people think differently. I'm just curious what you all think if you see like a company copycat somebody that's done it 10 times before them. Are you more apt to try it or more like roll your eyes?
I mean, Ryan, I think it just take me out personally, take myself out of it, how I feel about it, what I think about it. There's a market for it, and there's a reason why you walk into a grocery store and the only type of books are in there are romance novels. There's a market for that. No matter, there's tons of them. And so I think there's just a flat out market for it. And people just like that anecdote that you gave when you were selling, you were doing a tasting, and you said that the whiskey had what note in it? You said, Ryan, and the chocolate had a chocolate note in it. and the guy thought it was a chocolate flavored whiskey, and
Right.
you had to
Yeah,
correct
flavored,
him.
Yeah. Orange
You had to
chocolate
cor-
flavored.
That's it. And you had to correct him. It's like, no, it's not flavored. He's like, oh, I don't want it then. So, I mean, consumers, taking out the people who are watching this show or listening to it, this is a highly educated group of people that love this and spend way too much money on bourbon. And we love you for that, by the way. But you take those people out of the equation. Most consumers just want to be told, what to like and what they should drink. And if they see cigar blend on there, it just captures every single person who likes the occasional cigar. Oh, going golfing with my buddies. We like smoking cigars when we golf. I'm going to grab that cigar blend. So I think it's just capitalized on the market. And for me, I think all of it's bullshit marketing anyway, but that's a story for another time. I'm done. I'll be kicking the dead horse pretty soon when we get to the barrel finishes. We're not there yet.
We're already on that.
Like Stephen
Wait,
Bean
did we
said,
skip cigar
51%.
blend?
We're still on it. We're still on cigar
Oh,
blend.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'll wait for my dead horse kicking.
Okay, we'll saddle them up here. Wait for you. The other thing that I kind of want to look at too with Ron you brought up is saying like doesn't pretty much that's why we talk about bourbon and cigars going together well, is because you don't need a special blend. Like for the most part, I would say that you probably can't go wrong picking any cigar out of a lineup, one that you like, plus any whiskey, some that you like, anywhere between 90 to 120 proof, depending on if you have a light cigar or a dark cigar. I think it's a pretty good pairing to be able to say like, oh, now I got to come out with special finishes and do whatever. And that kind of just ties in what Fred is saying. Like, a lot of this is just marketing at the end of the day. I mean, you've seen a lot of, as I said, with Boo Rye, you've seen a lot of different things come out. I think what they're able to do is they can say like, well, what goes well with here? Let's go ahead and do this. And that is kind of where my head's starting to think now, is where Fred said, well, why didn't they trademark this? And so there's a lot of things coming up inside of the chat. Like Knows Your Bourbon says, come out with the campfire blend, come out with the smoked ham blend, come out like whatever it's going to be and trademark it. Now, you can't necessarily trademark actually, I don't know, Brian, can you patent the process to say, like, if I use these three barrel finishes and call it this, that means you can't use these three barrel finishes? Or is it to say like, well, you can use the three, you just can't call it whatever it is?
Yeah, probably not a patent, but because it's been done before essentially, but the registering those trademarks, I mean, that's the important piece here. And when Knows Your Bourbon came up with that campfire blend, I mean, you can see that. Close your eyes, you see that on a bottle right now.
Taken.
Yeah,
it's taken.
High West has
Yeah.
a campfire.
Ah, damn it!
But is it trademarked?
It may very well be.
I'd have to go to the Google confirm that, but I think it is.
And it tastes very campfirey too. It's been a while since I've had it, but remember that flavor profile.
Well, I mean, I kind of have tended to like. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, the thought process behind there is like, say I want to come out with my American cheeseburger blend. Like how protected can that go if somebody goes and says like, oh, I made a cheeseburger blend too, and I put it on the label? Well, what are my repercussions? I guess, Brian, like, how can I go far as saying like, you can't do that? Like, that's my trademark.
Yeah, I mean, if you use it in commerce and you have registered the trademark, then that's part of your name, and you can use it. And you frankly, you have to protect it from someone else that starts putting cheeseburger on there. And then you got to get into the debate of what if they just put hamburger, or what if they change it somehow and it's kind of similar but not so much.
Double cheeseburger.
Double cheeseburger. Exactly.
we had the same thought, didn't we?
Yeah, perfect. That's the perfect. When someone comes out with cheeseburger, you one up them, and then you've got the triple. Then you've got McDonald's gets in, and it's the Big Mac or it's the Whopper or whatever else.
It's the Big Mick, right? We're not McDonald's. We're
the Golden Arcs. The Golden Arcs.
Throwback for anybody that's watched Trading Spaces before, or not Trading Spaces. What was that? No, what was that? Coming to America. That's what it was. Thank you.
Well, look at Maker's Mark with just their lawsuits where they've had to defend the dripping wax, which just seems, when you look at that trademark, you look and say, there's nothing to even talk about here. And yet they went to court for weeks with arguments that were considered, and coming away from it, they defended it. They did, I believe, say they only defended it because it was red wax, but I've yet to see. We'll see if another bourbon producer goes and drips black wax down the neck of their bottle. I think it kind of scares everybody to say, I don't want to be in a courtroom with them trying to get through that, so it's one of those things. It's like, it's not done till it's done, and kind of never done. You gotta kind of keep at it and after it. As Brian knows, he's
yeah. Well, and
Absolutely.
the judge in that case said, red for sure, but he basically gave a shot across the bow. Better not be any color dripping wax.
And I can't tell you how many brands I get on a yearly basis that still have have some kind of dripping wax. I just got a new slew of them from a craft distiller. I'm like, what do you guys do? I mean, don't you all like Google anything? Jeez.
Read Bourbon Justice for once, people.
For goodness sake.
That was whiskey, Fred. Those were whiskey bottles that had it.
They were whiskey bottles. Yeah. I mean, if I was in my office, I would just go to my office and grab them, show them to you. But I mean, I get so many packages. I have no idea what I got. I don't know what it is, but it had a wax. It was dripping.
Yeah, you see it a lot on beer bottles and craft beer. You're seeing it quite a bit, but I don't believe they're covered in the trademark. Maybe Brian, that offhand. I'm not sure,
I remember Benny's last year. I think it was just last year, maybe the year before, had a barrel-aged stout that they used dripping red wax, and it hit social media, and everybody's like, "Oh, what about Makers?" And then, sure enough, it was off the shelves and came back without wax.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. That's a lot of work to unwax some bottles.
Unwax it.
Yeah. Or they just
Wax
redip color.
Yeah.
Like, all right, guys, we're having an office party here. Just
I guess I'm just thinking through on this whole topic, but then it comes back to like, well, we're all just doing the same thing because we're taking corn and wheat barley or corn rye barley and putting it in a charred oak barrel. And I'm like, so we're all doing the same thing in that sense, but I guess it's just something about it when they're like, it's a cigar or an Amburana and 50 people come out saying they're innovating and doing that. It just like makes me roll my eyes. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. That's the thing where I'm at with it. But essentially we're all doing the same thing anyway. So maybe I shouldn't. And Amburana cigars or batches are great.
No, it's not that. It's just it's really hard to do something and put your stamp and say like, this is our technology, this is our process, like this is something that nobody else can replicate. Anybody can replicate anything that's happening in the space. Is it going to be the same exact thing? Absolutely not, because of all the different environmental factors that come into it. But you're right. The bad thing is that there's no way to protect anything. So if you do come out with something that's truly innovative, truly different, then by the nature of what it is, we say that we have to put exactly like what's on the label and everything like that. Anybody can go and replicate it. Plus, the way that today's consumer really works is that, well, people want to know about it. People want to know exactly how you got there, what you did. So you have to talk about it. And so your secret's out there in the open anyway. So it's not hard for anybody to sit there and take something that you've built, something that you think that, oh, this is something that's truly special, unique to us that nobody else can do. Well, unfortunately, people are going to try to take your mousetrap and tweak it to make it a little bit better or to make it their own.
Yeah, but a counter argument to that too. I mean, look at cola, look at Coke and Pepsi. I mean, arguably pretty much the same, but people have, I think, a real connection. Some people have a real connection with one brand or the other. I'd say that's as much, if not more so, with bourbon, with whiskey. So if you make a connection or the brand makes a connection with somebody, and I mean, maybe it's not the first one that has existed, it could be similar, but it's maybe the first one they've had, or they feel connected to that brand for some reason. I got to believe there's a strong, there's going to be a strong ability for that person or for that brand to maintain that connection with the person. I mean, just thinking about what you guys are doing on Whiskey Row or what you're going to be doing on Whiskey Row, somebody goes through and does that, that's going to create a stronger connection with the brand than just going and picking up a bottle off the shelf, and it's going to be those kinds of things that, ultimately define and I think make that difference. And that's what people are looking for with whiskey. They're not just looking for any product off the shelf, the lowest cost. You're not going and looking at like unit pricing. We're not, this group on this chat, watching right now. No one's doing that. People are looking for like the X factor that's kind of hard to define. And even though you have a lot of people doing maybe something that's similar, that X factor, I think, almost can't be repeated. And so a lot of it's just kind of establishing that, making that connection with people, and then holding it and continuing to put out a good product, continuing to keep people's trust, be honest, like all those things that people in the community respect, that you got to earn and you got to keep. I think that's the important thing. Finishing, not finishing, doesn't matter.
All right, Nick. Pepsi and Coke are not the same. Not even close. I mean, you have the beautiful angel of Coca-Cola and all the joy it brings you. And you walk into a restaurant and you know you're in a good restaurant if they serve Coca-Cola. But then you walk in there and they serve Pepsi, and it's like someone has just taken your soul, thrown it on the ground, and stomped on it.
Oh, hey,
yeah.
I like PepsiCo products.
Ooh,
so
see?
Well,
just
I mean,
saying.
Mountain Dew, right? You're a Mountain Dew guy.
Pepsi's gross.
Oh,
Right?
get over it.
Pepsi.
I will die in this hill, and I will always say that 7-Up is better than Sprite, hands down. So
Okay,
that's
well,
the
that's-
PepsiCo
those are
product that I
pretty
will die
similar.
on that hill.
So
Yeah,
I agree with you, Fred. But what I'm saying is, on the surface, it's very much the same product. But when you take that factor of like seeing that brand and what it means, that means something to people. And I think by and large, you could argue if you tasted one and weren't really like a daily drinker, and then a month later taste the other, I'm not sure many people would be able to tell the difference. They'd say it's cola, plain and simple.
Well, I will say that I always find Pepsi to be flat. Like wherever I get it, I guess I'm getting it at the wrong places. It's just not that fizzy. So, yeah, for me, it's
All
about
right.
the fizz, and Coke is always packing.
I guess where I'm at, it's like, okay, does that, like you doing the finish or trend that everyone else does that build brand longevity with customers, or are they just trying it because it's Amburana or because it's Cigar or because it's toasted or this and that? Like,
Hold on. Before we get to there, we have to have a tiebreaker. So, Blake, is it Pepsi or Coke? Like, what do you go with?
I heard the word Amburana out of Ryan's mouth, and I just felt like I needed to come and weigh in on my opinion on this. So, I mean, it's Coke all day if we're going based
all right,
off of
Team Coke.
taste, But I mean, Pepsi's fine, it's good, but yeah, have I ever drank a bourbon in Pepsi? Not unless I was forced to. So it's bourbon and Coke on that one.
Oh, there we go. All right, Ryan, what do you want to finish up your thought there with?
Oh, I was just saying, like, okay, you have, the trend or whatever. Does that build brand longevity? And I'm just thinking out loud, like I'm not making judgments one way or the other. I'm just curious, like if you love Amburana and you want to try like the 20 brands that do it, do you become a loyal fan of that brand because of an Amburana finish, or is it just because it's Amburana finish that you're trying it? Like, I guess from a brand's perspective, is that gonna bring someone in that they're gonna be with, same with Cigar, or are they just chasing the Amburana Cigar or whatever finish?
I would say yes. I mean, at least from what we see on Sealbox, somebody has something that they like and want to try, and they'll try a new brand because of it. Whether that's high proof, Amburana, even toasted was the big one a little bit ago, where people are like, "Oh, I got to try something, a toasted barrel," and so they try new brands because of that, and would become fans. I mean, I think Penelope did a great job with that, of acquiring people based off of certain things or trends or whatever it may be, and then people are like, "Oh, I really love this brand. I love what they're doing, and they make great bourbon."
By the way, there was somebody in the chat that probably had the best comment I heard. It says, Blake is like herpes. He pops up when you least expect it.
That's hilarious.
Thank you, Michael Brown.
I've never heard a more accurate statement comparing me to herpes, but that's pretty true. That's pretty.
Gotcha.
So Michael would have to have some good knowledge about herpes in order to make that comment. So,
Dang, just throwing him under the bus.
Jeez, yeah, golly.
Oh, is that wrong? I'm sorry. I didn't know that was wrong. I thought
calling
herpes...
our fans out like that, man.
These are the people who support you, Fred.
I thought it was okay to talk about herpes.
Sounds like somebody's having a book burning tonight. All right.
I'm with Bogan Painter that Schweppes owns. Schweppes was awesome. I had that in Europe. It was great. That stuff's fantastic.
We'll say the herpes finished whiskey will not gain any fans to answer that question, right?
A little
No fans.
apropos, a little apropos, these groups, these health groups will try to ban alcohol where there's high rates of gonorrhea or herpes. Comes up every now and then, and so on college campuses, and Discus will have this big like back and forth with these town councils over how distilled spirits don't have an impact on herpes. And it's kind of funny if you go back and read the transcripts, which I have before. So
That's something I never thought would be covered.
Yeah, there we go.
I didn't see herpes in the show notes for tonight, but I'm glad I jumped in. I'm glad.
So I'm going to
jump. You're our herpes, Blake. So
I'm going to jump off the herpes. So Amburana finish. I'm curious of the group and actually people in the chat too. Fans of it, not fans of it. I'm so far in the camp of enjoying it. The ones I've had, aside from a few I've liked. How about y'all? Where do y'all fall on it?
I mean, Ryan and I have been pretty adamant that we're not fans of anything Amburana. It's been hard to find ones that are. I mean, it's for us. It's like it's a very much a gingerbread kind of like allspice. It's like this would taste great during Christmas, but I can only have one of them. That's about it.
Yeah, to me, it's in the flavored whiskey category. It doesn't taste like bourbon finished in anything. It tastes like flavored whiskey, which is fine, but I just feel like it needs to be in a whole different category.
Well, and so what I compare it to is peated. It's the closest I think we have to peated in bourbon as anything else, because it's
By the way, let's make sure we set the stage. It's not like a flavor of peated. It's like changing the liquid so much that it is a completely different flavor profile.
Go drink Lagavulin next to Macallan. They're both scotches, but it's drastically different, and it's polarizing too. The joke is always, well, I don't want to drink an ashtray, but some people love peated scotch, and that's fine. That's their preference, and I think that's the closest we've got on the American whiskey side in recent memory, because we're not smoking a lot of things, or at least it hasn't caught on. But I think there are two pretty large pools of people. Like, some people love Amburana, some people think they hate it. I mean, we see it where people are like, I tried this, the bottle's obviously tainted. It's like, well, have you ever had Amburana before? It's like, no, I've never had it. It's terrible though. So, but I think that's kind of the fun part. It's expanding the market and just putting a new little spin on it. But that's my take.
I'm fine with it. It's not the bourbon that I'm looking for, but I like it as something different. So I kind of put it in a different category. And frankly, I kind of like the bourbons that have more tobacco and leather, kind of the older, more backbone type bourbons. Anyhow, I've kind of gravitated that way. So I'm fine with it, but I think it'll be something that passes.
And Fred to be the tiebreaker here.
So,
moving on. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I don't remember when we recorded this, but I kind of talked about it. But the TTB is looking into this wood and asking the question as to whether or not it's actually been harvested legally. A lot of the stuff that's coming over here, Brazil has not done the best job of protecting its rainforest. They do the best they can, but people go in and sneak in and cut down trees they shouldn't. And there's a fear that a lot of this wood that is used for cachaça, but they harvest the right trees, they use the right barrels. There's been a lot of reporting on this over the years, but the TTB is, according to a couple sources of mine, are looking into whether or not a lot of the wood that's been being used in whiskey is being used. It actually has been harvested legally. So I think that this could be one of the biggest fads in American whiskey once whatever, if someone's been acquiring barrels illegally or something like that, I think you're going to see the end of it. But in terms of the flavor profile, Boy, I'll tell you, when I first tasted it, I was like, "What the hell is this shit?" You know, I thought for sure it was somebody had flavored it, but it didn't have that flavory kind of chemical feel on the palate. And I think it has its place if it can be preserved, properly. But I don't like it. I haven't had one that I was just like, oh wow. The only one that I've seen that kind of wowed me was the combo one. Was it Penelope Rio? That was a combo. Yeah, that was solid. So,
Rio
but
prices just doubled.
There it is.
I don't know about that. It's already doing quite well.
That one, then they tamed that kind of the funk that you get with the Amburana. That's
With the honey barrel,
the
yeah.
off-putting. Because
Yeah.
I hate to say it, like I never had this before, but like a manure flavor sometimes with it, which is kind of bizarre.
Well, as
you
a
get that.
connoisseur of manure, I will tell you.
Oh, buddy.
Grew up on a
Hey,
farm.
Anybody grew up around animals, it happened at least.
But that's
once.
a weird. You got to admit that's a weird tasting note for a whiskey, and I've had that on multiple occasions. And Penelope Rio tamed that aspect of it, which I think when it goes too far, it gets really into that just too earthy territory.
I
and
mean,
they
it does
kinda tamed it
follow
with sweet notes.
It absolutely does follow it does follow the track of a Scotch, like and the an 8 to 12-year-old Isla that or a blend that has a lot of Isla in it. It does have some of that kind of like super earthy, which if you look through a lot of Scotch writers, notes, you will see goat shit come up from time to time. So it's an official note in their vernacular.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess so. I just need to add honey barrels to my Scotch. Maybe I'll like it.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, look, that's the one. That's the when we talk about barrel finishes, sign me up for more honey barrels, like real honey barrels. I can't get enough of those things. I love them.
They're good, and some of them you can tell they left a ton of honey in them. But the ones that are good, you can tell that like they did a great job of balancing where it's not just so overly honey. Like the Bell Mead ones are fantastic to me.
It goes back into what you said at the very beginning, Ryan, of we need to have oversight, or there needs to be some sort of guidelines.
I'm all for finishing. I think they're fun. I love the flavors they bring out. Sometimes they just go to the ones that I taste that people say taste like a Cinnabon or taste like honey. And I'm like, I think there's something in there that makes it taste like a Cinnabon or a honey bun, not just the wood finishing. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not saying people are doing that. It just kind of feels that way. And there needs to be some oversight or guidance on it. That's all I say.
It's the Boy Scout, Scout. What was it? Scout. What was it? Something honor?
Scout's honor.
Yeah. Thank you, Scout's honor. I was like, wait a minute, what am I
Scout's
talking
honor.
about? All right. Without going too much, I know we're hitting a little bit at the top of the hour here at some things, but I'm going to kind of dive into this second one here real quick. And I want to kind of talk about, of course, more finishes, but we're starting to see a lot of top tier distilleries release some of their limited time offerings. They're ones that are once a year kind of things that are coming out, and their finishes. Most notably, the latest one has, of course, been Wild Turkey with their rum finish. But of course, we've started seeing this from a bunch of different distilleries out there. And so I kind of look at this and I'm thinking, I get it. We talk about finishing being innovative, but a lot of these companies have deep stocks of bourbon. Why not just create a really, really good batch of 10 to 17-year-old bourbon and not finish it? Like, why is finishing having to say, like, this is
I'll
what's
tell
going
you
to
why.
demand that LTO?
Yeah, I'll tell you why. Because Jimmy Russell and Jim Rutledge, those are not the people in the meetings making these decisions anymore. The distillers, the actual real distillers, the people making the whiskey, have completely lost their voices in these companies. These companies are now ran entirely, for the most part, marketers, MBA people, brand managers, people who are just are tapping into a market of craze and craving for American whiskey. But for the most part, they don't care about the educated consumer. They care about that new consumer. And it's another press release. It's another opportunity to get an influencer to go, hey, I got this bottle here. And now I'm going to go camping and look at my nice knife. Ooh, and a saddle, blah, blah, blah. This is all it is about. It's about like a new flash. It's a new look. And the distillers have lost the room. There might be one or two distilleries of large scale where the distillers are still holding fort and keeping the whiskey safe from marketers kind of dictating to them.
Yeah. Before we go, I want to give just a saving thing is that, of course, DJ from Rare Bird said, well, because Masters Keep series is all about experimentation, which is fine. But I also put that analogous to something like Parker's Heritage. We can all probably say with an affinity that some of the best Parker's releases were not their finished whiskeys. And so I would look at it and I would say, go find better barrels and just release that and do it right. Because the finishing craze, like you could put that under any different label, because I'll take it out of the beer thing. It's like, if I'm going to buy $150 bottle or a $200 bottle, like I want bourbon flavored bourbon. Like I just want a true, really, really good bourbon, but maybe I'm just part of the minority now. And that whole consumer mindset has shifted.
But I think you're getting that too, though. I mean, Heaven Hill, look at the Elijah Craig barrel proof batches. They're pretty damn good. The Larceny barrel proof batch is pretty damn good. I mean, Russell's Reserve, the higher aged limited release stuff, Four Roses, their blends, their limited release blends. I mean, a lot of even just the normal stuff. I mean, pick up a Russell's 10-year. They're always really good. I mean, one of my favorites, to your point, Kenny, Parker's Heritage Promise of Hope, just fantastic. I mean, and the argument was it's Henry McKenna and it's 4 proof less, which was interesting because that was like technically what it was, but whatever pulling those barrels were just fantastic. And it was across, all the barrels I had, at least. It's not like it varied from barrel to barrel. So I think that's there too. I think it's just somewhat some of all of the above strategy, and they don't always have, a big lot of that really fantastic Parker's Heritage Promise of Hope, 10-year to put out. And, you'd like, let's try something different with it because that's what the market's asking for today too. I agree with Fred from the marketing people across the board. But that's also what's driving people's attention, what brings people to the brand. And then, these big Kentucky brands, shit, man, anything they have on the shelf daily is fucking fantastic whiskey. I mean, it's very, very good straight bourbon if that's what you're after. And you don't have to spend an arm and a leg for it either. You don't need a limited release. That's why I tell people, you're new, don't spend more than 50, 60 bucks on any bottles. Buy 10, 20 bottles under that price before you go over it, because it's just not necessary. You're going to find a ton. Get to know the Kentucky majors, get to know the stuff that's out there all the time before you're chasing the stuff that's unique or seems fun and all that kind of thing. You're not going to appreciate it. You're not going to know what you like until you get kind of that baseline.
Yeah.
And thank God for Four Roses, not finishing anything, no frills. And maybe they have more flexibility, they'll at least say that with their recipes, but the art of blending the different recipes and the single barrel program is still firing on all cylinders after kind of a hiccup on not having all 10 available. I mean, that's where you go if you want true Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. Is, I think, right now, Four Roses.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just want, like, Parker's Blended Mash Bill is one of my favorite releases. Promise of Hope, the Four Roses limited editions are consistently, and it's because they're letting the whiskey and the wood it's not finishing, adding the flavor. It's just people with good palates going in there, picking good barrels and putting them in the bottle. And those are by far, you can't put any cigar blend or Amburana this or that over that to me. And that's just what I want as a consumer. But I know I'm in the minority these days, but I sure do miss those.
No, you're not in the minority. I mean, well, maybe we are, but my thought process was, and I'm not poking any one thing. I guess I'm probably poking the big six, because of course they have we'll say 1 million barrels to go choose from. So that gives them the opportunity to go and choose a lot of different things. And so when you see somebody come out with a limited edition that's a finished something from one of these large companies, I look at it and I go, is that all you got? Like, I know you've got really good whiskey. Like, let the whiskey speak for itself. And that's where, I mean, gosh, there was, of course, I think Matt Cusick, he's been on fire tonight, by the way, in the comments. And he says, I hate to say it, but that's why I appreciate Knob Creek 18 and the Beam 17-year Hardens Creek probably so much, is because of all of the effort that went in just to make sure that we have really good whiskey to put in these particular bottles. Now, is this a one-off because, oh, well, of course, it's 18 years old. Are you going to go finish 18-year-old whiskey? It maybe, probably not. But I guarantee you, even if you wanted to come out with a small batch product, and by the way, who does it the best every single year and sells out all the time? Michter's 10-year. 10-year bourbon. Everybody from these large organizations, they all have 10-year bourbon, but what does Michter's do best? They choose really good barrels, and they have yet to really just come out with a dud. Every single time it's great, but you don't see them going like, well, I guess we got to wine finish this thing now and come out with this. So I have a feeling that it's just like, it comes down to figuring out like who's going to make the call on figuring out like, do we preserve what we want to put forth as limited edition whiskeys, and should they be finished? In my opinion, if you're a large company and you've got over 1 million barrels in inventory, I think you can find some barrels that you can put out a really good product with. Even if you said this is the best 7.5-year-old whiskey that we've ever put out, let me try it before you finish it in a rum cask, because I guarantee you there's a lot of people out there that are just like us that want to just try really good bourbon. All right. Am I should I get off my high horse, or am I done?
I came in late for that, but that was awesome. Yeah, I'm tired of the finishes. I mean, it's been like kicking a dead horse for me. I don't like how they are marketed. I think it jeopardizes the state of bourbon, and I think it really does, the way they put it on the label. I think it violates what we consider bourbon under the federal code. And at some point, there's going to be another country that says, well, it's going to start making bourbon. And they're like, hey, well, you don't even respect bourbon in your own country. Why should we respect your definition? So I feel like that's going to happen one of these days. And it's happened. It's actually happened. But the other distillers have backed down in Sweden and in South Africa. But it's a dangerous, slippery slope. And marketers are just doing it so they can capitalize on SKUs and get more shelf space. But the fact is, I really did like that Wild Turkey rum finish. I really did. I liked it a lot. But did I want to taste the Wild Turkey by itself? Absolutely. Absolutely, I did. And I think that's the problem. Some of these finishes are really spectacular. They really are. But do we know if the bourbon before it was finished was better? We don't. And I think at some point we have to have a little hope that there are distillers out there still doing a good job and not just dumping, sugar packs in there. But it's the whole category is in some ways a shit show because, you got people doing 4 and 5 finishes now. And that's beyond crazy.
As soon as you pass 3, that's too much for Fred. He's like, that's it. I'm out.
But pretty much.
No. Nick, did you have one more thing to chime in here?
I was going to pose a question to y'all, kind of talking about brands and what they're doing and so forth. Do you guys feel like, and for anybody in the chat too, do you guys feel like the industry generally, when we look at producers, distillers, do you feel like they generally as a whole more uphold what bourbon is and uphold the good things and kind of self-regulate? Or do you feel like a lot don't, and we're really moving to like kind of the Wild West in terms of what's allowed to happen. Where do you think where do you guys think we are on that spectrum of self-regulate, honor things and that versus now it's starting to get to the point of being too far?
By the way, great question. Great question, Nick. 5 years ago, I'd say that it's still very much protected. They still have very much have their own. They have the category in mind, but a lot of the old guard has retired, and and I don't just see it in just like these barrel finishes. I see it with how they market products. There was a time that you would never see a brand taking a picture of a child or a family or something that next to a bottle of bourbon because of the implications that could have down the road with the federal code of not marketing to children or marketing with children. But yet you see that on social media all the time, even to the point of advertising a distillery tour as family friendly. And while there's nothing in itself wrong with that, it's still a violation of the federal advertising code. So I see it not just in how the whiskey is made, but how whiskey is marketed and how social media has made it very easy for people to slip up. So I think there is a lot of people with good intentions out there, and their intentions are to capture a market for the most part, but they often are naive to what is permitted and what can really shut down a company and for another point, an entire industry. So if you're not careful, uh, you could get tagged for drinking irresponsibly. There's all kinds of things that's happening on social media, and I just feel like we are moving away from people that did act as guardians, and now people like Brian, myself, Kenny, and Ryan. You all have your own brand now, so you can't really say you're a guardian anymore. You're a guardian for yourself, but you're
Oh,
not.
I feel like
You're
I'm
not.
even more of a guardian because
What
I
I well,
see
what I
everything
was going,
going on now. It's
but what
like,
I was trying to say, like an independent, like blogger or podcaster or
yeah,
something. Now you all are a brand. You're more in the trade guardian, but and Nick, you all are too. But the we are the ones that are caring of like what is responsible, and I feel like the brands don't do that anymore. 5 years ago they did, and and the Kentucky Distillers Association and the Distilled Spirits Council, I feel like they're so focused about repealing taxes and things like that, which are very important, but I feel like they're really losing sight of a lot of the responsibility things and protecting what bourbon is. All right, that's all I got.
perfect.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, TTB loosened things up during COVID. They didn't loosen up they were going to define barrel size and all that kind of stuff. So they've got this kind of back and forth that they're going through. They're, allowing all this finished stuff and messing with what you can say on age and adding that. It's kind of herky jerky to me. I just don't know what way they're heading, but overall, I sense that just using Fred's time frame of 5 years ago, it's a lot more loosey goosey now.
No, Nick, I think we probably need to take this question to the next roundtable because I think we can dive in probably more. We'll have different answers for you in a month as well.
Yeah, it's one to think on. It just inspired it as you were talking. I have not thought about that before. Starting to think of some of the the master distillers of the modern day, many of whom are now aged out, have either passed away or no longer really involved. With many of them knew each other through the trade through decades and decades, and now we're seeing that kind of change over. And we're, of course, seeing the impact of social media and everything on top of that, which it's an interesting dynamic. It's a question I've not posed to myself yet, but that could be a whole round.
Well, like I said, we'll wait for that for next time. I think we've touched on a lot tonight. I think that the finish debate will continue for a few more years to come, and we'll see how crazier it's going to continue to go over this time. And it's up to you, the consumer, to kind of be the one that dictates where this is going to go.
Ask questions.
Hold people accountable.
I think we need I said this, I think to you the other day, Kenny. It's like we need an episode where somebody who understands or is with the TTB that we can present to them anonymously labels that have this certain things on them and be like, does this qualify as what it says it is? You tell us, and we just read up. We won't say the brand. We just read what's on the label and be like, is this what it says it is? And is it qualify for that?
You're going to need the voice distortion in the shadow.
Yep.
Yeah.
60 Minutes episode, is that the
Yeah.
So much. I have a contact at the TTB. They're always willing to talk on the phone, but they never want to go on Zoom or camera or anything like that. And they are very rigid with the responses. But I mean, I think that TTB gets beat up far too much for the amount of people that they have. I think they do a great job with the resources they have. And for the most
I don't
part,
think it's a TTB fault at all.
This is the producers that are trying to push the envelope of regards of how it's like everything else in life. You go, what can I get away with? And that's pretty much what producers are doing, because how do you vie for attention? You try to look and say, what's the craziest thing I can come up with that's going to get eyeballs on me? All right. And now how do we make this legal?
When they were deregulating the alcohol industry, or attempting to, Norman Hayden, who was the president of then Old Fitzgerald Distillery, testified before Congress in 1982, 1983. And he said that the whiskey industry will begin to deceive consumers if you take away the relationship that the whiskey distillers had with the government at that time, which there was an operator there all the time with lock and key, and they made sure there were no massive errors like accidentally dumping bourbon in with rye. And there was a time that if a distiller said that they were the best-selling bourbon, they had to prove it before a closed TTB hearing, or then, the alcohol, it was even before the ATF, is Department of Revenue. But so this stuff has slowly been getting away from being truthful and honest and legit since the time that they deregulated the alcohol industry. And it started with tax stamps, and we've lost so much since then. And while people are always like, well, we don't want government in here, the fact is that actually means transparency, and that means no one's dicking around with your whiskey. So,
well, let's I love the passion. I think this is probably one thing that has stirred out of all this, is that people can probably understand exactly where we come from. I feel that everybody that's on this roundtable is somebody that's gotten into bourbon for bourbon. We didn't come into it because we tried some other flavored finished whiskey. It's like we really liked the pure product is what it is. And maybe it just is like it's a hard thing to realize, is that like what we love might be slowly fading away because of just the trends in bourbon. And maybe that's something we have to realize, and maybe we'll take that to our therapist at some point. But
why
are they coming out with the number Amburana? I can't
don't want it.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's close it out. I want to say thank you all for joining in this. This is another fun conversation. I guess if you want to get us really heated talking about things, we'll talk about finished whiskey, because that is something that I feel that is a very poignant and debatable topic in regards of where can the industry go and how far can it go. But before we say our sign offs, I'll let the guys down below me do theirs so they can give a plug for everything they're doing. So Nick, we'll start with you first.
Yeah, this was a fun chat, guys. Nick, Breaking Bourbon. Find us at breakingbourbon.com, at Breaking Bourbon, all the socials, reviews, news, release calendar. Y'all know where to find us. So great comments and great chatting with y'all tonight.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Brian with Sippin' Corn, Bourbon Justice, and shout out to my favorite glass of the past couple of weeks here. It's the Bourbon Pursuit big ass glass. I mean, I'm almost tempted sometimes to put a cube in here because it would fit, and I don't know if that makes me a bad person or not, but
you can, as long as you don't finish the glass in Amburana, we'll be okay with
it. You're awful now, Brian. You're awful.
I know. I'm off the BCR now, but thanks, guys. Cheers, everyone.
What happened to Blake? He just came in for like
Oh,
like
he,
2
yeah, he
minutes
just,
and
Kept the streak.
yeah, he dives in, ducks out, that sort of whole thing.
Yep.
Mhm.
But there you go. Blake already said his goodbyes. But again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for everybody that was on the chat. A lot of good banter back and forth, especially between all us here. So I love to be able to see that. A lot of good takes everywhere else. So make sure you follow Bourbon Pursuit wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to us wherever it is. Sign up for our newsletter. Sign up for Pursuit Spirits newsletter. You can hear more about all this crap that we're opening downtown. That we're going to have so much cool shit to be able to talk about. And of course, follow us. Write a review, and also follow our friend Fred Minnick over here on all of his channels, because we all need the love, and we've got a lot of more bourbon content to always put out there as well. But with that, cheers, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Vodka sucks.
toodles.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And now Lauren's going to hate me. She was like, you went like 20 minutes over. I'm like, well.
Well, she's got to cut out that whole herpes section. So
Yeah.
No.
She's going to cut out herpes, and she's going to
Yeah.
cut out Kenny's early comment about, I forget what you said about her, but as soon as you said something, I was like, oh shit. When
Kenny's
Lauren
gonna
gets back.
cut that out before
I
it goes
know
to-
she's going to listen to it, so I,
Yeah.
I make sure anything I say
Listen.
is carefully worded.
Yeah.
Next month is Herpes Awareness Month. I mean, I made that up, but this
It
could
might,
fall right
it
in
might
line.
be. You might be right though.
Hold on, I'm gonna Google Herpes Awareness Month. Hold on. He's
DJ's asking for a locker to place downtown. Actually, I don't know if we're going to have lockers. That wasn't really in the
Okay, so-
business plan.
What'd you buy 'em
Herpes
for?
Awareness Day.
bought,
Awareness
like,
Day is
50 lockers.
October 13th.
I bought lockers. I don't know what we're going to do with them. We'll figure.
October 13th.
I got it so me and you have a bunch of lockers. That's it.
Great.
That's all you need.
We're definitely having lockers, DJ, somewhere.
It
the
may be at the warehouse, but
the YMCA.
yeah, there'll be,
Yeah,
there'll
you
be
can.
somewhere.
I'm sure you can get lockers cheap from some renovated high school and just use those.
Oh,
Oh, no,
Kenny
I
bought
have-
the wine locker. We have the legit lockers.
You got the legit ones.
Yeah, so call it being naive, whatever it is. So once we closed on the warehouse or whatever, I started looking up all the online bidding places where you can see like companies that are going out of business and buy their old equipment and all this other kind of stuff. And because we need forklift and we need all this other kind of stuff. So I'm just kind of looking for things. And of course, I run across this wine cabinet making company. I guess that's the best way you could say. And they had tons of stuff that was available. And they're based in Cincinnati. And of course, they had like pallets of wine lockers that
Huh.
went up. And I was like, well, the price is right.
What about that shit? Huh.
We'll figure it out later. Yeah. So I want them for a steel. Bad part was just actually having to go up there and, pick them up and put them in a truck and bring them back. But yeah, I've got, I don't know, probably 90 lockers or something like that sitting on pallets.
I'm like,
Huh.
Kenny, we need pumps and blending tanks, and he goes by his lockers.
I'm just thinking, I was like, I don't know what we're going to use them for, but it's cool.
So I'm kind of curious. So when you legal agreements with that, so do you have some responsibility of what's in there if it's to be stolen or there's a catastrophe or something?
Ask
you
our
write that
attorney.
out. So
Hold on.
it's just
That's
at your
all-
own risk. Like
That's an
All the
insurance
risk is
problem.
not-
We're not
no.
there
all
yet.
the risk is on the consumer.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
always.
they signed a release, so we're good.
We could. My
we
bottle was full when I put it in, and then
Evaporation, man.
Then Kenny showed up and had a bunch of people there.
Everybody gets a Sharpie that they have to put in their locker. They got to put it on the bottle
Right.
and the label with their signature just to make sure nobody comes in and messes with it.
We had somebody write to us years ago that was storing their bottles in like a thing in their dining room, like a glass case or something. And they were writing about evaporation because they found the storage experiment, and they couldn't figure out why their bottles were going down in. And they're like, "Is it evaporating?" And
It's like,
we're like
how
looking
old
like,
is their teenage son?
yeah, like
Yeah,
how old?
they had a
like,
17-year-old
How old
teenage
are
son.
your kids? Like, I don't think you're losing. Like, they're talking like a third of the bottle just lost somehow with it sitting there sealed. I'm like, there seems like only one possible explanation to this.
If you taste it again, does it taste like sweet tea or is
Right.
it watered down?
Watered down.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That is funny.
Isn't it funny? Like those are the things that we get as emails because we all get just random things of like, is this worth anything or is whatever? And it's just like, all right, here we go. But that one takes the cake. That's a good one, Nick.
It was very in depth too.
Gotta love it. People are awesome.
It was interesting.
People rock.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I know.
All right, guys, I got to cut out early. Yeah,
sounds good.
I'm gonna do the same. Great chatting
What
with
button
y'all.
do I have to hit? I have to hit upload.
Can we go?
Oh no, I gotta hit the end of broadcast button, so
He's
don't
gotta-
leave yet. Yeah. So thank you everybody
upload.
out there in chat land. Hope you had a good time, and I guess we'll be back in about 3 to 4
No, like
weeks.
2 weeks. I thought.
Yeah,
It's
and
like-
Michael
it's
Brown,
real
thanks
quick.
for being cool, man, on the herpes thing.
Yeah, I think you sent an invite that moved it up.
Yeah, I moved it to August 14th.
All right, so 3 weeks.
Because
Monday,
I have
right?
because I'll be out of town the week after that. Yeah. So
Mondays are probably going to be out for me.
forever.
'Cause
We
of
always
football.
record these on Mondays.
You know, I had no idea like how intense Oscar's football schedule would be, but unless my wife's home, when she's traveling more and more, she's got a meeting at the White House.
Whoa.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, before we
this-
incriminate her, let me end the broadcast and then we can talk afterwards. Let the upload
right.
finish. So,
Oh, I thought we were done.
everyone.
Sorry.
All right. See you later.
See ya.